Hey everyone, you're watching Rooted and Rising, and this is a show about aging, healing, and everything in between. So let's get into it. So recently, I was looking at a YouTube channel of this senior gentleman who identified himself as being 84 years of age. And in the video, he talked about how he hasn't spoken to his children in almost over a year. And during that conversation that he had, he said that the reason for this was not because their children were, bad children or evil children or children that weren't inconsiderate. He said the reason was is that he started to feel as though he was getting in the way of their lives. And this kind of went on slowly and gradually, but over the course of a period of time, he just started to feel very lonely and left out. He said that it started off with him just kind of calling randomly and talking about, maybe things that weren't big or didn't seem to be big or important to anyone else. Just maybe he saw something outside and he wanted to let his children know what he saw, or he wanted to just, check in with them. And he said that over a period of time when he would call, that it sounded like maybe one of his child, she was distracted with the kids in the background or some work, and it was almost as if he was talking and she wasn't really responding. It was just more or less And with his son, he said that it was pretty much him saying, yeah, I remember that, and okay, but it was almost as if the conversation was being rushed. And he said after a period of time, it got to the point where he would call and said, sorry to disturb you, I was just checking in. And he said after a period of time, he just felt very lonely. He felt that he wasn't connecting anymore with his children, and that they were just simply too busy for him. And so he decided to just not call anymore. And that's how it went on. I didn't quite understand, or he didn't say in the video, that his children contacted him when he never called them. He didn't mention that. But I found it interesting that he slowly just started to kind of fade away into the background, to the point that he no longer was center in their lives, and decided to just not contact them. And he said that even now he still feels very lonely, and he feels like he's by himself. So that started me thinking about what would happen when I get to that certain age, and if that will happen to me. In fact, I guess I can say that as an empty nester now, that my children aren't as actively involved with me as they used to be, right? They have moved out and they live lives on their own. They have careers, and they're just, living life on life's terms. And so with that, I have noticed that, the contact hasn't been as much as it used to be when they were actually living in the household with me. And so I wondered if and when I get to be, up there in age, and they have more and more things going on with their lives, will they begin to just not stay in touch with me, and what that means for me. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who wonder the same thing, or maybe in fact you're going through the same thing, where you no longer talk to your children very much. They no longer call you, and you don't call them. And there's a definite disconnection there, and you're wondering, are you taking up space? Are you just an afterthought in their lives? And maybe you are resentful about the fact that your children are no longer reaching out to you as much as they used to. And so as this begins to happen, you begin to wonder, is there something that I've done wrong? Maybe they don't love me anymore. I don't feel like I'm wanted in their lives anymore. And you start to kind of question that. I don't think it's a matter of anything that you've done wrong. I think that in general, and I'm talking about if you've raised children that that are that you consider good kids, that you raise them well, that you know that they are good people. I understand there's situations where there's some parents out there that feel like their children are just too much, right? But the ones that feel like I have raised good kids, I just don't think it's a matter of something that you've done wrong. I do think that, there's a point in everybody's life that you kind of, have to spread your wings and move on. And I think as we age, seniors, I think that our lives become a little bit more easier. A lot of us will be retiring soon if we haven't retired already. So we don't have a lot of the connection to, our working colleagues, our friends, I think begin to pass on. A few of mine now have passed on. So your friendship circle gets smaller and smaller, and life just becomes more slower. But it's interesting because for me, it feels like life is moving faster and yet it is slow, if that makes sense. And I think it's because it feels like there's not so much busyness, but you do feel like you're getting older. And so as that's happening to us, our children's lives are becoming full. It's becoming full with work taking place most times of the quantity of time that they have. They have their own friendships that they're expanding on. They have their romantic relationships, and they don't talk about everything with us. Some things they tend to keep to themselves, but their life is just chaotic and busy. They have so many things to do, and so as their life is getting more busier, our life is getting a little bit more calmer, right? So definitely there's a difference there. I remember when I was coming up in my 20s and similar things occurred with me and my mom. I just got busy and maybe I didn't talk to her as much as I used to. It was just a part of life. It didn't mean that I didn't love her any less or wanted to not be present in her life, but I just became a bit consumed with life. And that does happen. So I think reflecting on that experience when I was in my 20s helps me to understand maybe why at a certain point my kids will kind of pull away just a little bit more, and I won't take that to heart and I won't feel like there's something that I've done wrong. Maybe there's something underneath that you feel like you need to explore. Then definitely talk to them about it and ask them, is there anything that I've done to upset you or offend you over the years? I did a previous video on it's okay to apologize, and maybe there is some things that have happened that you need to clear the air. That's perfectly fine. But if there's not, it's okay. Don't take it personally that your children are not as involved in your life, contacting you every day, like they used to. Also, I think it's important to consider each child differently. For example, my son, he's a chatty box, so he can call me and we can just talk for hours. And even he can call me and we can be on the phone and he could be working and I'm working and we're not saying anything at all until we do say something. And then we're on the phone easily for an hour, right? That's just his personality. Whereas my daughter is a little bit more, she's the type of person that will hold her cards to her chest. And sometimes she wants to talk a lot and then other times she doesn't. So other times the conversation might be a little bit shorter. I'm not seeing those two people as, being treated the same. I have to respect how they both approach me and not take it offensively when, say, my daughter only wants to be on the phone for 15 minutes. So I recognize that every child is different. And so with every child, there needs to be some type of conversation about it, right? For example, when both of my children moved out, I had a conversation with them and I set some expectations. And I understand there's some children that will call their parents every single day. Sometimes they talk to the parents all day. Everything that happens in their life, they're picking up the phone and they're calling their parents. I get that. Mine not so much. So I had a conversation with them about how often I would like for them to contact me. And both of them, I said to them, when you move out, I want you to call me at least once a week. Is that going to be a problem? And they both said, no, not at all. So my son calls me typically on a Monday. He starts his week off by calling me. My daughter will call me kind of in an impromptu way. So she may call me randomly during the week, and then we'll talk at that time. Each has their own way, but they both agreed to call me once a week. Now, I do talk to them more than once a week, but that was kind of the minimum expectation that I had. Now, in between that time, we do text and leave messages and things like that, and that's another way of how we communicate. I have been known to send emojis and memes, and yes, and I've sent some video that I've seen on Facebook or an old picture of when they were babies, and I'll send that too. And they may get a little giggle out of it and send me a message back. And that's my way of staying in touch. But it's a two-way street. They reach out to me. I also make it a point to reach out to them. I think it's important to understand that it's okay to swallow your pride. Don't expect that they should do everything for you, that it's okay to reach out to them and come to some agreement on how often that might be mutually, whether it's once a week or once every couple of weeks or maybe even every day is perfectly fine. But it's a mutual agreement that you both have. I think that's going to help have some type of commitment to stay in touch. But I think swallowing your pride and letting yourself know that, hey, I want to talk to my kids, I'm going to call them too. I don't have to expect them to call me all the time and then make them feel guilty when they don't. So I think at this time in our lives, I think it's important for us to go get a life. We have been consumed by many years of our children's lives. We pour ourselves into them, how they were in high school and the things that happened in their lives. And we were kind of consumed by that. At least I was, right? But now it's time to enhance the life that you have and not rely on waiting for that moment that they'll call you. For me, it's getting involved in groups outside, enhancing my social life, doing more activities, doing things that make me happy and interest me. So I'm not sitting by the phone waiting for my children to call me all the time. I have a life too. So now even when they call sometimes it's like, oh, you're busy, or what are you doing? You're not home? Where are you? So it's important. It's important for us to take a look at our lives and think about what we want to do to enhance the life that we have. So I think it's a good idea to also not compare yourself to others. I have friends that will say to me that their children will call them every single day. In fact, my husband talks to his mom quite a bit, while I don't talk to my mom quite a bit. But I have other sisters that we call it tag team. So I may call my mom one day and the other will call my mom another day, and then we kind of fill up the week that way. But everybody is different. There's some kids that will talk to the parents every couple of weeks, and it's perfectly fine. But I think it's important to not compare yourself to others so that you won't be more inclined to make your children feel guilty for not calling you and then feeling bad and feeling like you're a bad person because they don't call you. So I think if you want to connect more with your children, feel free and go ahead and initiate it. If you feel uncomfortable, have that conversation. Don't feel like you're a burden on your children. Remember, they love you. Even though it seems like they're not always in your life, they do love you. And if you feel like there is some tension or some issues that have come up, then that's a whole nother matter. You want to sort that out and maybe talk about it if you can. I understand there's some parent-child relationships that just aren't that way. But the ones that are strong and have bond, you can work through this and have a conversation about it. And if you want to talk to your children, pick up the phone and give them a call or send them texts. Send them a meme, an emoji, just to say, hey, I've been thinking about you and I love you. Those little things go a long way. This is a process we all go through as we get older, that sometimes our children just don't talk to us as much as we want them to. But remember, you do have a say in the matter. It's okay to reach out to them. It's okay to set some expectations, to have a conversation, see if you can work through it and meet some type of middle ground. And then don't make them feel guilty, and don't beat up on yourself if they don't always meet those goals. And this is a time in your life that you can enhance your life and at the same time reach out to your children and share what's going on in your life as well. Are you going through a time in your life where you feel like your children aren't communicating to you as much as they used to? And what are you doing to try to rectify the situation? Are you reaching out more to them? Are you using guilt as a tactic? Or maybe you're just kind of sitting back and waiting to see what they would do. If you have advice or some things that you have tried that have worked for you, please share them down in the comments below. And if you like what you see here, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.